never was planning to be a mom or to breastfeed, but when happy accidents happen, I just learned to go with the flow of life. I ended up trying breastfeeding after being really, really reluctant and saying I'd never breastfeed in public, I'll just try it at home, to then getting some incredible support from Fab, a local charity, and Breastfeeding Network and other NCT groups. And I just found myself on a bit of a 7-year journey. I was co-sleeping, tandem feeding, because then I had 2 kids, both breastfeeding, co-sleeping, my Bambies and me. I fell into the gentle parenting, attachment parenting communities. I'd never planned on it. I think you just have to go with the flow of your new role as a parent. And it was one of the most grounding, beautiful experiences. Don't get me wrong, it was challenging, and going, to uni at the time, working, breastfeeding in glass media buildings, and kind of taking my babies everywhere. Or I had a jogging buggy, and we literally just jogged around everywhere. People knew us because I'd always be carrying bags and babies, and breastfeeding and baby wearing. And then all that changed, because often life changes and throws us challenges. I've had lots of challenges in my own life, but then when I split from their dad, I wasn't quite prepared for being separated from my Bambies, my babies. It went from not knowing how to kind of stop breastfeeding, because I had a lot of support to start, and there's not a lot of information when you kind of want to kind of wean off, because it can be really exhausting. But I wasn't ready for a journey to finish overnight. And I think I've been in grief. I don't know if other people have felt this, co-parenting or single parenting. And when you share the care of your children, obviously they get the best of both worlds, hopefully. As I guess we're in a lucky situation in that way. But I grieved. I could not go in their room when they weren't here. I was really hurting, and it really impacted my mental health. I genuinely felt like a wounded lioness. Like my body still was like lactating and producing milk. I was so used to having my babies by my side at night. And then I'd even spoken so much about breastfeeding in the media, online, all the content, and then it all ended overnight. And it was really, really hard, because people don't talk about the transition from attachment parenting to co-parenting or single parenting. And it sounds ungrateful, because obviously I've still got my babies there, I still see them, but actually it's really, really challenging. And now I've got over to the new phase where I can sleep in their room when they're not here, because I literally mourn them when they're not here. And that's why for a long time I just could not talk about breastfeeding anymore. I could not talk about co-sleeping, baby wearing. It was literally so painful that our whole lives had changed overnight. And I'm not saying I felt the pain, but I'm sure for my babies it was even worse, and for everyone. But actually that transition, I knew I had to step away from talking about it, because it would trigger me, and I had to protect my kind of mental health and redefine my role in life, because I'd given it all to them, and I'd still worked, so I'm glad I still had different communities and whatnot, but I felt like I couldn't identify as a mother. I couldn't go to groups anymore, and school holidays were challenging. I would be invited to play dates and I didn't have kids with me. But then you can find peace eventually, because you go with the new flow in life. At any point when your babies fly the nest, you're gonna feel the empty nest. But actually it's again how I'd went with the flow of motherhood in the end, when I was a decade too early to be a mum, as I thought. But then you do learn to get with that flow. You have to redefine your life, rediscover what's important to you, whether that be empty nesting and off to uni, or that you've separated, or for whatever other reason. That's why it's so important. Whilst being a mama, I'll never stop being a mother. That's just how I felt. But being a mama is the most important role. But I don't define myself solely as that. That's my heart and part of my heart, but it's also my values that make me intrinsically me, my communities that make me intrinsically me, my journey doing media, community media, my purpose to drive social change through the media. We have to find us roles in those ways, because there is hope, and we often look for the common titles in life, what we think should be the normal, but actually we've got to find our own flow. And when we do, and I'm not saying there won't be hurdles and huge setbacks, we can really start to embrace who we are, not to be defined by labels or what society brings. That's why I always say a mother's role, it might not be to bear children, it might be to nurture others. There are so many different elements of nurturing and giving that we can embrace. And now it's my daughter's birthday. I've been a decade of motherhood, but a decade of having the greatest gift possible. And I no longer weep on their birthdays when they're not here and I see them later. Sometimes I do. But I'm a lot more positive because I'm making the most of the time that I've got with them. Sending you so much peace, so much love, and so many shimmies. I'd love to know your experiences too of co-parenting or single parenting, and how you cope with your own mental well-being.